We're doing the thing, Paul.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Arcade Insiders battle on the fight on what did you come up with, Josh? You had like a whole bunch of good names for it.
Oh, my favorite one. My favorite one was he had the Skaven one because that's a Warhammer reference. So I think we'll go with that.
All right, I like it. I'm good with that. So yeah, we're just gonna chat it up about Sonic tonight because apparently that's the thing to do. Everyone's doing it.
Well, you know, Paul. I know. We like to do the fun ads. And make it look like we're gonna have like this big drawn out like knockdown fight, and I'm gonna like insult your family line, and maybe it comes to that. I hope not. But I think it's a healthy discussion. I think it's interesting. It's there's been a few folks who I guess don't love the idea of a Sonic. I saw Sonic and I saw green because, you put blue and yellow together. I saw green. I'm like, it's going to print its own money, right? So I was extremely excited about it. But
I guess to get into it, we should see who's here to debate.
Yeah,
let's. So I suppose.
Let's shout out our friends who were hanging out with us on a Thursday night.
Yeah. So Vic Vicious is here as always. He's saying Sonic on Genesis, yes. Arcade, not so much. We'll discuss.
That Miss Pac-Man XL looked beautiful. Talk about a long time coming. That was an easy decision to make right there. That was
sure,
good.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about that first because that's an easier one. Josh, one of our moderators, is in the house. David, Historian CM, is also here. He may not be in the chat. I'm not sure yet. But they're both in the house.
He'll be here recording the history of Sonic as one of the greatest releases in the home arcade community.
Something like that.
And he's just transcribing it on copper scrolls for posterity. Glad to have him here.
He's actually chiseling it in stone as we speak. I have him on mute so you don't hear the hammering. Dark Tech Kelly, I know where you stand. We were chatting earlier. Appreciate being here as always. Is real gaming. I also have a feeling I know where you stand.
I've got a feeling. I've got a feeling.
Yeah. And you're also waiting for your iconic cab, keeping tabs on the shipping there, which is good. Yeah. We're all watching that with a keen eye for sure. J Pace is here. Good to see you as always. Soup the leg.
There we go. Coming in. Don't give away the secrets, J-Pace.
David Deming, good to see you.
Not a fan. David is not a fan of the Sonic XL. Okay. All right.
It's not just a hell no. It's an easy hell no.
An easy hell no. Wow.
Guys.
AD.
Guys.
Been here since day one, always keeping it live in the chat with us. What's up, Biggie?
It certainly is. Let me just scroll a little bit further down here. Jeff D, good to see you. Provolone Joe's in the house again. All the 26-foot cabs? Maybe I'm reading that wrong. 26-inch cabs? Let's go with that. Are Supremes.
Or maybe they mean the 2026 cabs. Maybe
duh. Okay. The apostrophe in the other side. Yeah, okay.
Sweet. I'm going to be arguing against a mentally handicapped person. This is going to be easy.
Does that mean Kevin won't be handling any of them?
Oh, great question. Yeah, I'm not going to handle the XLs. I'll buy them in 17-inch.
Did you not promise you had at least one Supreme that you were going to...
I'm not done placing orders, man. I'm placing orders left and right. We're cranking them out. And I have no intention of giving up on that dream. And I've still got my hit list, and I'm just going to keep fighting. Otherwise, people are just going to yell at me at the chat every week. So
that's pretty much it.
Got to keep my cred up after arguing for Sonic here.
Damien's here. I know for sure where you stand. Good video today. There was a, I don't know if it was a hint exactly, but there was a Gizmodo article that came out. It was a booth interview, and the Dragon's Lair title was mentioned. And then very quickly, the arcade went up official account, said, no.
That was just talking. Just talking out loud. We shouldn't do that.
Hypothetically, if such titles existed to be considered.
We could someday, maybe, if we wanted to.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Danny covered that. Did a nice little video on that article. So
he did. Yeah, they both did actually around the same time. Yep. Yep. Tom's here talking about Qbert. Well, there it is. First mention of the night. Took us 6 minutes.
Got to the Qbert art. What if I told you guys Sonic Cab is just a Qbert cab designed as a Sonic, and it's just a troll for the whole community? Everyone who buys a Sonic actually gets a Qbert. That would be the best.
Sonic Qbert mashup cab. It's half and half. That's the dream, right? That's what everybody wants.
Don't say that kind of thing out loud, Paul. Don't you
and
dare
clip
say that.
Right there.
Done.
B. Kirby's here, offered to step in if he needed to separate us, which is much appreciated in case we start throwing virtual chairs across the... I don't know how it's going to work.
Going to get real emotional about Sonic.
About MDF boxes.
That's right.
End of line says, hey, everyone. Hey, back to you. Thumper Squid. Hello to you. He likes Sonic as a console game, not so much an arcade title.
Yeah.
CR Cool King 36 does want to pay $100 for Genesis ROMs when you can easily get them on consoles for less than $10. One could argue that most of these games that we have could also be purchased the same way, but we'll get into that, right?
Well, and that's a slippery slope too, because then for the same thing, you could be like, yeah, but I could also download all of these games for free and put them on something that I built and just,
I think that's not going to be
Buccaneer adjacent. So
yeah, sail on the high seas. Yeah,
sail on the high seas. Howdy, y'all.
There you go. Howdy, y'all. Howdy back to you. And let me just scroll down here, make sure I caught everybody. No, still got some folks coming in. I am Rappy 8791. Nice looking cab. If they could, a Genesis collection on there. It's worth having as an art piece. And that's one way to look at this that we'll probably also discuss because there's some design things we want to chat about. Supreme Starhawk. That's not a name I recognize, but good to see you here.
Yeah.
Funny, the Sonic cab just looked like a waste of space to me. This must be what normal people think of all the cabs.
There are probably very normal people out there that are like, why do all these guys have basements full of arcade machines? But they're not part of the cool kids.
The normal people.
They're not on Arcade Insiders on a Thursday night. Losers with no arcades. Get out of here. No shade if anyone in the chat doesn't have arcades. I was just kidding. It does look awesome.
Yeah, and we'll probably chat about that one first because that's more of a no-brainer, I think. But yeah, Chris says that's a big no-ski. Sonic boys. Well, okay.
All right.
Yeah,
wow.
We'll chat about that.
This show's just about wrapped up. 15 minutes in.
I mean, I've already won. Jeez.
Dude, gosh.
I don't know. Brooklyn Menace is here, and it's awesome to see you. Moat back in the house. Can I get 1.5 Sonic Supreme cabs in advance?
How about one cab and a Game Gear? That should cover you.
Oh, Game Gear, man.
That's how I originally played Sonic. So everyone's talking about Genesis. Yes. I'm like, I played it on the Game Gear before I played anything.
Yeah, heck yeah. I remember selling those back in the day at Toys R Us. That was a good, steady business.
Those Game Gears were sweet.
They were. I mean, the color screen, yeah.
Awesome. They were shit.
Sonic is messing with his childhood OCD.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we got Arcade 1UP official in the house. Awesome seeing you here. Great job keeping up the socials. Whether we say nice things or not, you're there replying, which I think we all appreciate. So that's awesome.
But we have no idea what you're talking about. What was not a hint? Who knows? Could be Arcade 1UP. We have already spilled so much BS into this conversation that we have no idea which lie you're debunking.
I got to keep up with the chat way better if I'm going to have anything that's relevant.
4 minutes behind.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. I'm just trying to hit anybody that I missed. Zero Redux, I don't think I caught you yet. He's giving you some life advice here. Bonk's Adventure Supreme. What do you think? Some TurboGrafx 16 love? That would be interesting, actually. A TurboGrafx cabinet. That's a niche we have. I don't think anybody's really talked about that recently. We talked about Neo Geo, obviously Nintendo. Of course, Sega's in the conversation. Not TurboGrafx.
Interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know about that. Okay. I got to move faster. Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll do one more quick one here.
Oh yeah, the new Rayman 30th anniversary. That's the next one, arcade one up. Rayman as an arcade. That would be dope.
Uh, all right. Well,
What an infuriating game. So Paul, it sounds like it's not very balanced in the very elite community that we have curated here, that the folks who know the stuff about the things seem to be disappointed. Now, I am just a humble businessman, and I am, I haven't written all the lore that CM Historian has written, so I don't know everything about the business, but what is grinding people's gears on this? I mean,
well, let me tell you first what's not grinding people's gears. I don't think as much because I do want to start on a positive note.
okay, let's start positive.
Because this, I think, was a win for Basic Fun that hasn't gotten talked about a lot just because it got overshadowed, but something that people have talked about for a long time in general. So there's a Ms. Pac-Man in the Supreme / XL, whatever it's officially going to be called, size that was shown in a prototype form, which is awesome.
That's a very beautiful cab. That is nicely done.
It looks pretty well done. Now, there's an argument to be made, and I've made this on the socials already, so it's already out there, and Arcade One Up Official has seen it and commented because the art is not final. But those of us that are more familiar with these know that there is a separation between the bezel around the monitor and the control deck for one, and that graphic, that pink graphic that comes down, sort of does like a horizontal thing underneath like the buttons and the stick. It doesn't go just straight down. So there are some, I will say, like if you're gonna go 90% of the way with the authenticity, why not try to like just do it all sort of authentically? So I think most of us would like to see those details ironed out before production, but otherwise, pretty good.
Step in the right direction, it sounds like.
I think step in the right direction. Yeah. I think
Nice.
aside from just those sort of executional details, the only other thing that's maybe rubbing people the wrong way is the suggestion, which was just an MSRP, that it could possibly be $799. Now, to me, that's just giving retailers leeway to set their own prices wherever they're going to set it so that they don't step on anybody's toes and get out ahead of the story. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right about that. I think when you guys are seeing MSRPs, and we talked a lot about this when we brought out WrestleFest, right? Where people are like, oh man, it's they're listing it as $599 or whatever. Like it'll that would never be that price. It's like actually, when you're talking about doing either promotional events or whatever you want to, you can always drop down and give a sale and kind of test where those retails lie. It's a lot harder to come out at a price where you're losing money and then try to raise retails over time. So I think you put that out there, and that kind of shows what the value of the product is going to be. I mean, the $799, that's what we're looking at with like the iconic cabs.
Right. Right.
So I think that's probably where we're going to see the 19-inch cabs probably lie, is going to be in that $799 space. But then again, that does give you the option if you want to run a promotion or something that you're not losing an enormous amount of money to do it. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I felt like even the booth rep that was speaking to some of the people that were there and producing videos even sort of hinted or suggested it's more likely $699, perhaps $649, where WrestleFest is sitting currently. That's probably a more realistic price point once it actually hits retail. But, I guess we'll find out. So on screen is just a quick sort of side-by-side that I did with an original Ms. Pac-Man on the left, the prototype on the right, just for people that aren't as familiar with these, so you can kind of see what those relatively minor differences are. But, again, if you're going to do it, might as well do it right kind of thing. So hopefully they'll get that, kind of tightened up before the actual version reaches production. But
yeah.
So
overall, though, it's good. It's good to see it. That's one that people have been asking for that never had really been done. And if you've got some of the staples in your home arcade and you want to upgrade them to 19s, that's a good title to do the upgrade with. So I thought that was a smart move.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Now I don't know. I don't recall hearing what games might be included with that kind of cabinet. I think that's maybe one of the issues that's come up around, like for instance, with WrestleFest, the Supreme Series cabinet. At one point, it was mentioned early on that the Supreme Series cabinets are always going to have more games. That one did not. Now, I don't know if that factored into the pricing at all. I suspect it probably didn't, but I think that is what makes the conversation around a seven or even $800 cabinet even harder to make. Is, are you just going to have four games? And if you're only going to have whatever, three, four, five games, if it's not executed to perfection, like the value equation might be tougher with that. So I think
You
that's part
know,
of the conversation.
on I have a I'm kind of split on the large like the large game libraries on them,
Hmm.
because at some point if like you're getting into like that multi-cade space, and it almost just seems like, hey, if you just pack them with 17 or 21 games or whatever, are you playing the bottom 9 games? Did it really add value? And at some point, if you want a ton of games, you got a console, right? That's there's all these conversations that keep like weaving back and forth, where if your value is, oh, I've got 100 games on here, it's like, okay, I could get a PlayStation subscription for $10 a month and have access to thousands of games, right? So
Sure.
I'm more interested in, do they have a cool collection of games on it, where like, do they have like 5 or 6 games where the 5 or 6 games make sense with the control layout? I know we've
Yes.
seen we've seen some, especially with the Atari cabs in the past, where it's like, okay, yeah, there's a ton of games, but the control layout actually didn't really make sense with some of them. So I'd rather see like 5 or 6 like killer games, that all makes sense. A great example of that to me was like the Time Crisis cabinet,
Hmm.
right? It only had what, Time Crisis,
Like
Point
four games.
Blank, um, and then there were two other ones. It
Steel,
was
steel, forget.
Steel.
No, what was
Oh
it?
gosh, I could like look
Yeah,
them
they
up
weren't
right
even
now.
great games, but
No, but like,
but they were
but they were
appropriate.
decent. But they were decent, is what I'm saying. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there weren't any real like throwaway games. All the games that were on it were like pretty fun to play. I wouldn't have wanted them to go down to like 17 games where you're like, okay, the last 5 games are trash. Like, why?
Steel Gunner. Thank you guys.
Steel
Yeah.
Gunner. It was Steel Gunner and Steel Gunner 2. We're both on it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that actually. And I'm kind of both minds. Like I'd want every single game that's on there to feel like it's perfectly suitable to that cabinet. Like it's got to be like not a game that was designed for like a vertical monitor squished into a horizontal. Nope,
Right.
don't ever do that. Don't give me one where the control scheme is like, it's got to be played with buttons that are up here, but you're giving me buttons that are down here or to the other side or whatever. Like that all has to work. But I also hear the side that's saying, if you're giving me a game that I can play a bazillion other ways and there's nothing necessarily like super unique about that control scheme, maybe give me more of them to help make that particular price point a little bit more worth my while. So I'm not just going to throw a Raspberry Pi in it and do whatever. So I'm sort of on the fence. I'm not necessarily like a huge multicade guy. I think they all have to work for that cabinet, but I hear what people are saying where it's like, we've only given me a couple games. We're taking a step back, but asking for more money in the process.
Well, and I think we've come back. Like, obviously, we talked about tariffs. Whenever you add 20% into your item cost, that doesn't add any value, right? Like that doesn't.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate when we all look at the retail. We're like, hey, a retail has to go up, and it didn't inherently get better because of that retail. It just got more expensive because of the political climate, right? So I think that kind of stinks. I don't want to officially announce anything yet, but I am looking, like talking with some of the basic fun guys, and looking at like some of the different places that we're selling online, and getting really strategic with what sites are the most profitable to sell on, where we can offer potentially better discounts than what we've seen historically. So, if you haven't ever listened to me ramble on about e-commerce before, anytime you sell something on Amazon, like they're taking 15% right off the top, right? That's a huge. I mean, that's more than my margin, right? Like
Yeah.
they're taking a massive chunk, right? So, we just gave the government 20%. Not literally, because it's 20% off
Yeah.
cost. I got to catch that because people correct me on my math.
Yeah,
But
sure.
you got 20% added to the cost for the tariff. Then Amazon's going to take another 15% off. And then, as a customer, you're like, well, I want to see like 15 to 20% off, for a reasonable sale, right? So real quickly, you could just see how these items kind of come crashing down. So, some of the things that we saw a little bit of success with in Q4 this past year was, like, for instance, Walmart was an awesome partner.
Mm.
They were willing to budge on where those commission breaks were,
Mhm.
and so, like, I've already started meeting with Walmart because I really think for, like, some of the best deals, like, Walmart's probably going to be a great kind of event place where we could give a steeper discount than we probably could on an
Okay.
Amazon. So we are trying to get it as, like, work creatively. We're all hearing what people are saying, like, dude, the price point, it kind of sucks, and I think it doesn't help that the price point on pretty much everything else in our life has also gone up. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't have as much expendable income, and the things that I want are more expensive.
Right. Right.
Dude, I spend so much on Warhammer, Paul. It's like,
There's no room in the budget left for arcades when you've got Warhammer.
I mean, my kids are eating ramen noodles and frozen vegetables, because I need a new Gazgul Thraka. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Hey, priorities. I get it.
They'll be
Now,
fine.
okay, so I think this is a valid point. You could also say if the game is right, if the cabinet is the right title, done well, I might be willing to pay that additional cost. Like, the Time Crisis was at the upper end of what we ever saw a deluxe go for, and they still sold because people saw the unique controls, the unique games that had never been done, taller cabinet, giant marquee, etc. And on the flip side, Killer Instinct Pro did not have great perceived value and struggled to sell 500 units. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like, okay, you bring the right games in a well-designed cabinet, that by itself has value. So part of it is just in the execution. And I think that's kind of, maybe that's our segue then into officially now talking about the announcement potentially of the Sonic the Hedgehog cabinet that's gotten everybody so up in arms. So maybe I should just kind of let you make, I'll say, a business case for it. And then maybe we can start talking about some of the details that the community is concerned about. And by community, I'm including myself in that.
Right. Okay. So I'll make a business case. So before we dive into the detailed specifics, what ROM specifically was on the cab, what was the specific cab design, anyone who has looked at the picture of the cab can see in the top left-hand corner there is a tag on it that says essentially that this whole prototype is still pending licensor approval, right? You can't see it; it's kind of clipped out. It was actually you could see it better on the Miss Pac-Man.
It does have it.
They had a tag on the top. It's like, hey, this is a prototype.
Yeah.
This is a prototype. What is the purpose of a prototype? It's to put your flag in the sand, and to say, hey guys, we're doing Sonic this year. We're excited. That is about the depth that I would probably dig into, the details. I know the community loves to sweat the details and all those things, but I would say, like, hey, look, like, it's actually got the tag on it that says this is the rough draft. There, you can see the tag on there.
Yeah, it's there. Yep.
Claiming that off. So, what does that mean, in my opinion, as a buyer who has been approached with this cabinet, right? I am looking at it and I am saying it looks like they've got a Sega license and they're doing a Sonic the Hedgehog cabinet. As far as the specific ROMs that are playing on it, I think that probably remains to be seen. I know that they would like to do as much like of the arcade specific. So there were arcade cabs that had Sonic. And whether or not that comes to fruition, whether they stick with the Genesis ROMs, there's probably also, and I'm not confirming whether or not this has happened. I'm guessing There's probably a conversation with Sega. Like, what does Sega want to have out? Which would be the most popular for them? From a business standpoint, I would bet the cost of one of these machines that more people have played the console game of Sonic than have played the arcade. So if I was trying to find out or find a title that most people would be attracted to, I personally have only ever played the console, so I'm very biased, right? So if I sit down at an arcade machine and the game is very similar to the console, that's actually probably what I'm expecting. And there are millions and millions and millions of people that would probably feel the same way. Whether or not that justifies going console versus arcade is another thing. But I think that's kind of where I would stick, is that right now we have a rough draft. We have an announcement. The reason I'm most excited about this is like, how long has it been since we've seen a Sega title that we've seen someone seriously getting into Sega, getting into business with them? If Sega and Arcade One Up, Basic Fun, if they're able to have a really successful launch here, we all know how deep that catalog goes. But that could be very exciting. So I mean, Sonic is, Sega's Pac-Man, right? So like, maybe Pac-Man's not your favorite, but Bandai Namco has some really cool games too. I would expect even more from the Sega end of things, that if we can lay a great foundation with Sega and Sonic the Hedgehog is their marquee title, then I'm really interested in what cabs come out after this. All that said, they will sell a metric shit ton of this cabinet. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind. CM Historian can go ahead and carve that in the marble statue of me that he is creating in my honor of officially winning this argument in advance. So appreciate that support, good sir.
Speaking of appreciating support, Vic Vicious, thank you for this. He says that XL should be $699 and no more, and focus on single marquee titles with accurate, correct controls and form factors. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, where it's not necessarily just more games for more games' sake, like get it right, basically. But he's also saying, hey, the price point's a concern, which I think most people would agree with. So, I'm shocked to see the Arcade One Up official might suggest that they align with your opinions on that. I don't know where that's coming from. It's
I represent
crazy.
I represent corporate arcade.
So I think there's a couple of things that I am seeing. We talked a little bit about the price point already, so I don't think we necessarily need to go back to that. One of the topics, though, that I think does merit probably the most attention is just the game. So we know they're popular, at least in terms of the IP. We know Sonic is a popular IP. It's got the movies, it's got everything else. But I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was thinking about, so what if you're a fan of NASCAR, and NASCAR said, hey, we've got a new great sponsor. Toyota is joining. Hey, everybody knows Toyota. They've got some great brands. They do some cool stuff with their TRD racing brand and everything else. And NASCAR said, and the very first car they're going to put out to race is a hybrid Prius. And you went, what the because the Prius is super popular, right? Everybody loves a Prius. It's outsold like every other car, make and model. It's wonderful, and it's all these great features. Everybody says, well, yeah, we know it. It's great on its own. It's just not appropriate here. And that's, I think, part of what's happening is that you're looking at console-based games and saying, let's make an arcade cabinet out of that, when you're in a space where fans are trying to recreate the sort of look and feel of what they remember from their childhood. And Sonic was not part of that in an arcade sense. Sonic was part of that for the Genesis, Game Gear, all that stuff. And I was right there with you. The Genesis was my very first home console, had Sonic. I worked at Toys R Us and sold a crap ton of Sonics and Sonic 2s, the whole thing, and Game Gears, everything else. So I have fond memories of it in a console mindset. But in the arcade, Zero. Now, yes, I did a whole post on Reddit about the Mega Play, and before that, the Mega Tech, which came out primarily in Japan and Europe. That was kind of like Nintendo's Play Choice. So they were putting console titles in an arcade cabinet. Even in those markets, it flopped. It was not a success. So you're sort of like playing in a really weird space here with these titles. And I think there's also a valid argument to say, okay, if you're going to do a Sega cabinet with Sonic titles on it, fine. There are a few of those that exist and that it actually came out in North America. Why aren't we getting any of those? Instead, we're getting these console titles with controls that most of us didn't play on. We didn't play with sticks and buttons like this. We mostly played on a D-pad. So your muscle memory, doing the Sonic spin dash, whatever, like that's from a D-pad. That's not from a joystick. So I think there's a valid argument to say, okay, cool, do a Sonic cab if you want, but get some actual Sonic arcade titles and then skin the thing like that arcade title that has some nostalgia to it. Because that's the other part of this is the design. So the design of it looks to me like it came from 3 different designers. The side artwork, the control panel, the marquee, they're all different and kind of like representing different games. The Sonic the Hedgehog logo itself is different from the marquee to the control panel. You've got Knuckles on there. Knuckles wasn't in any of these games as a playable character. He came out in Sonic 3. So it's like you've got characters on here that aren't even in the game. So I understand, and I was sort of, I was told in the comments from Arcade 1UP Official, hey, this is a prototype, art, everything else subject to change. Cool, I get it. But when you're announcing this and hyping it to a fan base, like, hey, get ready, we got something cool coming, and then you don't have it buttoned down, like, that's where the problems start. I think if it had had appropriate artwork, some games that were reflective of actual nostalgic titles, that would have worked a little bit better. So there was no real recognition of that other than to say, well, hey, it's a prototype. It's just an announcement of something. So then it was like this kind of walk back of like, well, yeah, this isn't quite it. But clearly somebody thought it was because that's how it made it to the show in the first place. I mean, there had to have been a conversation internally about like, well, is somebody going to approve this artwork? Yeah, nobody's approving it. Just put it out there. No, that didn't happen. I'm sure it went through many rounds of discussions and whatever. So that's, I think, why it's a concern, because this made it to the show in this form, being this far off of what the core fan base would actually want. That by itself makes us feel like, oh, crap. We're back in the Arcade 1UP days where they didn't get it. They didn't listen. They didn't have anybody on staff who understood these games. Is this the first of more things like this? Mashup cabs, console games that are maybe easy to port and cheaper to get. Where is this going? All that said, if they had announced right beside this, hey, we've got whatever, Daytona, Virtua Fighter, Sega Rally, the House of the Dead, heaven forbid, but something else that was actually in an arcade that we haven't had before, I bet all would be forgiven, because it would be like, okay, this one's not for us, but you do have something for us. That's really exciting. This can be for the mass market, whatever. We'll just ignore it and move on. But that didn't happen. Instead, this was hyped up as this big thing, and when it was revealed, it was like, okay. So that, I think, in a nutshell, is where the community is coming from, sort of where I'm coming from. I was excited, frankly, to see a Supreme/XL size, and my excitement for that was kind of misinterpreted to think that, like, oh, Paul's really behind this Sonic cabinet. No, I was just excited to see another XL. So
Yeah,
kudos.
that's true. Yeah.
That was a win. That and Ms. Pac-Man in that size, I was like, sweet, man, that's a win right there. People took that to mean that I was saying, oh, this cabinet itself is a win. That's not what I was saying, but I understand that because my enthusiasm for the size was there. But I just think that got mixed or sort of lost in the conversation behind the actual title.
Right. So what I got from that is Paul's a size queen. The other There are a few things there that I want to call out. First
Yeah,
off, to compare the fastest video game character of all time to a Honda Prius or a Toyota Prius should be sacrilegious.
you're
Like,
welcome.
if you are a gamer in any stretch of the imagination, to compare Sonic to a Prius, that's a crime against humanity. I personally, I'm not going to defend the patchwork of art. Okay, so I've
Okay,
said
fair enough.
I've said that this is a rough draft on the artwork. I would say, whenever you're coming out with this artwork, you kind of alluded to it, but there are a lot of cooks in that kitchen. So maybe the one that was able, or the variation that was able to be shown publicly, was the one that had the most compromises that could be agreed upon in the moment, kind of deal. Because I mean, you're
Mhm.
going to have people. You got to think at like Basic Fun. They're going to have their inputs. The arcade one up. People who've come over are probably going to have their inputs. Sega's going to have their inputs. So I think there is a refining of the artwork that needs to be done. I think, yeah, that that's easy enough. I would be curious if you think so. Like, if they put the arcade ROMs on there and the artwork was fixed, like, does that make the cabinet good now, or is it still Sonic and we're mad about Sonic? So that's like a question I'd probably just throw into the chat. Like, what if they're like, hey, we just used the ROMs that were readily available in the best playable shape that we had access to on a quick turnaround, but the real cabinet is going to have the actual arcade ROMs. Are all sins forgiven? In that case, there's also another. It's kind of a phrase that gets thrown, like there's a couple that kind of get like intermingled and thrown around, but it's like what the community in quotes wants, what the fans want, what the customer base wants. And I think it's important to remember that there are multiple groups, and it is not a homogenous, like, oh, this is who buys all of these arcades. Because, like, quite frankly, someone who buys a Sonic the Hedgehog uh, might not be the same person who was an Atari fan, right? Like, there's multiple different markets here. So a 19-inch, well-known, family-friendly IP in a club store, I imagine does fairly well. When mom and dad or grandma are out doing the Christmas shopping, they recognize Sonic. It's a safe one. Maybe they had a Pac-Man, and a couple other, one or two others, and they want to add this. And for the home family market, it's a title that makes a lot of sense to them. And they are not the hardcore. Well, when I was at JoJo's Pizza in New Jersey back in 1987, I used to play on that cabinet. I remember the trim was silver. This one doesn't have silver trim, so it's bullshit. Like, they're not that customer, right? They're like, hey, I love Sonic. Sonic's fun. And little Billy's like, hey, I love Sonic too, right? And that's the market there. So I do think it's important to differentiate. I think it would be amazing. I was thinking about this ahead of the show. If people could actually put a number on like how big the community, like when I say the community, I mean the group of people that shows up on our show and Rexer's show and all the other shows. It's like the same group of us that are always chatting, throughout the week. Um, how big people think that this group is, right? It's very vocal, it's active, it's a great time, right? It's like we've got this club of it feels like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It's I think it's a little bit smaller than people think, compared to the number of people who are going to buy a mass market title. Um,
Sure, but I
so
get
from a business stance,
yeah. Well, I guess so that, and I've heard that mass market argument, and I do think in the case of say like a Pac-Man XL, I kind of get that. The part I take issue with maybe is that these are, I think when you start inching up the price point, they start to become a more considered purchase.
yes.
So what I personally would like to see is if the Sonic IP, even if it's console titles, was in a smaller form factor, your countercade size thing that could be picked up almost as an impulse, or for the 12-year-old kid's birthday because it's Sonic and it's safe and it's 150 bucks, whatever. That to me feels like, yeah, you'd sell a bazillion of them based on the IP alone. But to me, once you start getting up in this territory, then you are crossing over into, is this the thing I want? And you know what? Well, there's also this other thing now from maybe Iconic at the same price, and I'm starting to maybe cross shop more because it's not just like, oh, let me just stick that in the cart, honey. I just put this $800 game thing in there. It's going to take up a ton of space in the basement. How you feel about that? Cool. Like, that starts to become a little trickier. And one other just kind of minor thing while we're talking about it, you mentioned, or maybe somebody else in the chat that I forget, but like maybe these are just the games that were easy to get. And that made me think of this little detail I saw in one of the articles, and I actually saw this in some of the videos. It's not going to be represented here well, but even the emulation on this basic Genesis game was not handled well. And you can't see it so much here, but the bottom, maybe, I don't know, 10 pixels or so of this screen was out of alignment with the entire rest of the image. Like either they couldn't get it to display properly on the display, or something's wrong with the emulation or whatever. But it just kind of re-emphasized in my mind that this was not given necessarily the care or the thinking that maybe it should have gotten. And I almost feel like, you know what, maybe just announce that you've got the Sega IP and you've got these 2 or 3 titles that you're working on, period. Crowd goes wild. I realize it's not the same as showing like an actual physical
the
product.
crowd, no bullshit. The crowd won't go wild because then they'll say, no, where's the gameplay? Where's the UI? What's the game list? Like, let me see the
But don't show a
coin door.
prototype.
Like,
But don't show the prototype. That was
that's
the
what it's
mistake
for.
Iconic
But
made.
no, you could show a prototype, man. There's nothing inherently wrong with someone putting out a prototype that's 80% there. The fault lies with the people who, knowing it's a prototype, look at it and say, I will now dissect this product to its every minute detail and tell you why it's going to fail based off of a rough draft, right? Like, that's absolutely insane. Like, when the Iconic arcade was at CES, I mean, if you really looked at that thing, the attention to detail was optimistic. I mean,
Yeah, well,
like the way that thing was
yeah.
put together, it was a prototype.
Right.
Jerry was just on here a couple weeks ago. Do you know what a prototype, Paul? Do you remember what a prototype used to be? It was foam block insulation that had been painted on the outside and a picture of the gameplay printed out and put on there. They said, hey, this is our vision. We want to do something like this. No one was like, well, why would I buy an arcade that's made out of insulation foam? That's stupid.
That's exactly my point, because then you've made it clear this is such a prototype. It's not even close to production. I think the problem was this looked and felt reasonably close to a production level product that people, I think, are rightly concerned this is what you're going to get. And the tag at the top technically didn't say this is a prototype. It said subject to licensor approval. It didn't which I get, but it didn't say this is a prototype, art, design, games, pricing, everything else subject to change. It didn't actually say that.
My point exactly. No matter what you say, the community is going to say, but you didn't say X, Y, and Z as well. Like, it's an effing prototype. Like guys, like, it's, hey, we're doing Sonic. This is the vision. They go out. There's going to be buyers from all the different, like, what is the purpose, right? The purpose of these events is buyers to come out and be like, okay, I work for big box store A. I'm looking for what I want to have out for this holiday season. Oh, it looks like you fellas over here are working on a Sonic cab. Let's see. I'm not familiar with the game. Oh, I can kind of get a little feel for it. Hey, this looks pretty spunky. I'll take a big ass number of them, right? Like, that is the purpose of this thing. That's what the whole toy fair is about. And we're here spectating, saying, as the non-intended audience of this event, you failed to cater to our expectation. Like, whose fault is that?
No, I think, and I've done, because I'm in marketing, I've been doing trade shows for like 30 years. I think the execution was not handled properly because these prototypes, which I get, they're prototypes. We've heard that now after the fact, but their prototypes were right in line with all of the production models, did not say prototype on them anywhere. We got that afterwards after talking to people,
The
finding out in
tag?
chats. The
The
chats
tag?
said
Like, it's
subject to
not even
licensor
approved?
said subject to licensor approval. Okay, fair, but they all had that tag on. It did not say prototype subject to change, whatever wording you want to use, and it was right there in line with all the other production models. So heaven forbid someone might actually think this is what we're going to get along with all the other products that are exactly the way they're shown. So I
Right.
think it's an issue of communication. They could have just put them in a separate booth saying, going to give you a sneak peek. These are prototypes only, have a big plastered above, whatever. We're just announcing Sega is a great license to have. May not even be a Sonic thing. Just wanted to show it off. Okay, there's a little bit more of a grain of salt in that kind of announcement than put it right in line with all of your production models and don't say anywhere that it's a prototype until after the fact when people are already upset about it. Like, that's a communication issue to me. If that's indeed the case and it's actually all subject to change.
But if you know the purpose of the event and you know like you know that people are coming out with prototypes, like that's the whole point. Like that is the common thing. Like, at any point did they say this is the final production factory golden sample? Like, well,
Golden
gotta be
sample. Let's not
careful.
go there. Don't go
Gotta be
there.
careful. Don't go with the golden shower sample, right? Like, you don't want to get hosed. Oh, there's an image for you, boys. But
Uh,
I think let's look at both sides of the coin, right? Like, uh, prob like maybe they need to, maybe Arcade One Up. Let's say they need to be really really explicit, to make sure that everyone really understands what is a prototype, what is it not, what is its intended purpose, and what is not its intended purpose. Like, okay, fine, Arcade One Up official in the chat, make sure that you put a massive effing poster on the wall that says all of this is subject to change, or it could be the same, or it could not come into existence, or it could be like every possible. Paul and I, the first video we did, I think it was 20 minutes of disclaimers. It
yeah.
sounds like the community requires that many disclaimers for an effing prototype. So make sure that it's very, very clear. Paul, I come back to, like, I get some of the points, right? So, like, there's some things I can agree on. Arcade One Up.
And
I
sorry,
I,
I gotta
I know we're working on the art.
Like, I gotta show.
Can
I gotta
agree
show
there.
this quickly. I know. I'll go right back to you, but I want to thank Bill for being part of this and helping us out so much. He had just had to say the Arcade One Up community on YouTube is a sliver of the people who purchased the 4 million cabs sold by Arcade One Up. That's over since 2018. Some are delusional, thinking they speak for everyone who buys these. Of course, they don't. A few thousand people actually interact in this community. That's probably fair. Right now, there are about 55,000 people on the Arcade One Up subreddit who've self-identified as actual, hey, we're fans of this product enough to, register a username on this forum. There's about 25,000 in most of the Facebook groups who've self-identified as fans of these products. So I don't know what any of that equates to. I think a successful product is typically, if you reach 10, 15,000, that's a pretty successful run. So I feel like there's a legitimate audience there to be tapped into, but that's a separate part of the conversation. I just wanted to highlight Bill's, his super chat there. Thanks again so much, Bill, for that. But I'll stop now. Back to you, Kevin.
All right. I think there's, and this is more of a philosophical, like, where is this going, right? So Gen X has their sort of, these were the games of my childhood. Gen X, like, sorry, like the consoles and stuff, you guys didn't have PS5s as kids, right? So like your gaming experience more so than the generations that followed were in the specific arcade space. There are more people who are now coming into the purchasing population, and they are going to be a different customer than the Gen X customer, because our nostalgia, and I'm speaking, like I'm at the split, I'm a millennial compared to Gen X. My nostalgia is actually going to be vastly different than your nostalgia, right? Because the games of my childhood, like I didn't actually play a ton of Atari, right? Because like that was already kind of, by the time I was gaming, that was already kind of phased out and there was like newer stuff going on. So to me, like Atari isn't as nostalgic. Sonic, even if it's a Sonic will be more nostalgic. And as part of my collection, I would put a Sonic in it, not because I remember going to an arcade and playing Sonic, but because I enjoy collecting arcade machines. And in my group of games, I would enjoy playing Sonic sometimes. Now, I'm a different customer. I don't need it to, like, the game that I remember would be the console game. I don't need it to be this arcade accurate piece. But um, I think that that's going to be, this is probably the second title now that I think falls on the other side of that divide. The first one was when Double Dragon got announced. And Gen X is like, Double Dragon's bullshit. No one's going to buy Double Dragon. Double Dragon sucks. Worst game ever made. And I'm sitting here like, dude, I used to play Double Dragon for hours. Like, I love Double Dragon. Same with Sonic. You're muted. I can't hear you. What happened?
Sorry there. Yeah, I had something in my throat earlier, so I was muting myself. But no,
Pause.
Yeah, no, sorry. I just wanted to say that in the case of Double Dragon, no one actually said, "Hey, that's not even an arcade title. What are you doing?" It was just a matter of like, well, is it this game or that game? So that to me feels a little bit different. Like if you had said, of these Sonic titles that were in the arcade, which one is it? That'd be a different conversation. You wouldn't be putting anyone off saying like, what are you doing making console-based games in an $800 cabinet? And here again, I feel like, well, maybe there is a market for that. What if you did it in a smaller form factor that was specifically intended for the casual market? I feel like part of where we're playing with fire here is that you're putting this idea of a product out there at a price point that this community is actively wanting products in. Like for so long, we didn't get the Supreme and XLs we wanted. Now we're starting to see them. Hooray, applause, we're cheering, it's awesome, and it's the wrong title. And it's like, oh, we're so close. But if it had just been like a countercade, it would have been like, okay, that's kind of interesting. I could see Sonic sitting over here on the shelf alongside all my other collectibles. So I kind of feel like that's maybe part of where the pushback is coming from. It's like this like, sort of venting of this desire we've had for these larger cabinets that hasn't been fulfilled in the way that we had hoped, especially for something like Sega that's got all these awesome IPs where it's like, hey, you know what, a Golden Axe Supreme, that probably would have been pretty darn cool. House of the Dead, sell them all day and all night with this community. Yeah, Daytona, same thing. And then to see Sonic, it was like, well, that's a cool name, but not for this. Like there's so many other ways to play Sonic that I already have played that I probably have right here, but I can't say the same for House of the Dead. I can't say the same for Daytona necessarily. Those are unique controls, but I can play Sonic on my emulator right here. I can probably play it on my phone right now.
I think it comes down to the game, because it's it's kind of this circular argument where it's like, well, Sonic, like I could play Sonic on a console, so why would I buy it on an arcade? And then it's like, but you can say that for every single arcade, right? Like every single arcade you could buy in another form factor, in whatever form factor you want. Are you a PC gamer? Are you a console gamer? Do you stream from a hotel with your handheld Atari because like it's the breaking news of the day? Like you could use any form factor you want. I think at the end of the day, what we all have in common is that even though maybe this hobby doesn't make a ton of sense, let's say financially, when we see a game we want, we say, fuck, I don't give a shit if you think it makes sense. I want that fucking game because I like it. And I don't care if it's $500 or $600. Like,
Agreed.
that's my jam and it's going in my basement. And you're going to have a title that I might be like, why in the fuck would you buy that? Like, that is the stupidest game. You're like, shut up, man. This is my jam, right? So, like, I think that is the one thing we have in common is we don't agree on anything. I would. What if Sonic the Hedgehog was in the deluxe size and it was at the deluxe price point?
Let me hit this really quick first here. Yeah. Thank you. The French Connect. I think that without a John D type of character, or in this case, an actual person, to jump into this corporate space, we may never see what we saw in Dragon's Lair / the early deluxe days. Well, I mean, the good thing is he is in this space, but obviously with Iconic and I believe doing some work with Unico. So maybe we will see some things more appealing to that.
I know the conversations that I have, and I know like what titles we've talked about. I think the really frustrating thing for people who are like following this, kind of business is that the turnaround time is so long. So, if I pitched an idea to the Basic Fun team today, and everybody finally saw, like, let's say that was like a one conversation agreement, which would never happen. Right. But like if I pitch an idea to them and they're like, hold on a second, I've got that licensor on the phone. Hey, licensor, is this good? Hell yeah. Do we agree on everything? Hell yeah. Okay. Like, these things take a year from concept, to delivery. So I would say, hey, this is a new cabinet. All right. One of the biggest complaints is we haven't seen anything new. And the other biggest complaint is we don't see anything big. All right. Here are 3 big cabinets that were not available a year ago. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not nothing. So like when people are saying like, oh, like we're going to go backwards or there's no improvement, like, okay, let's just pump the brakes for a second. We've said we wanted bigger cabs, and we said we wanted cabs that haven't been released. Here are 3 XL cabs that have never been released. So let's start there.
Okay, but at the same time, you get the very first one poorly executed. The second one, another freaking Pac-Man, although it's Ms. Pac-Man, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's Ms. Pac-Man.
Yeah, I know, but still Pac-Man. And the third one is something that nobody said, yeah, I want one of those in an XL when there's
so it's creative.
So my point is you gave us XL that was a half-baked attempt, another Pac-Man, and an outright fail. So it's sort of like three strikes in a row, and it's like we keep giving year after year examples of titles that are like, this would be a home run. And I get that not every license is out there. It's easily, or accessible or whatever. But, it's sort of like, how could you hear that year after year and then come up with something that's not on anyone's list and feel like it's somehow the community's fault that we weren't automatically like, yay! Like, that to me feels like a disconnect. And I get that it's a prototype. I'm willing to forgive the artwork and stuff like that as being a prototype, even if you didn't say it is until after the fact. But okay, I'm all right with that. But it still wasn't anything that the community was asking for, even though it was the size. So again, there was like this sort of weird disconnect that feels like old Arcade 1-Up days instead of this new Basic Fun that everyone was kind of like, I hope they get this next one right. I really hope they get it right. Well, Ms. Pac-Man at least, I guess. Okay. But anyway, so you asked a question earlier, Kevin. I want to go back to that because I think it's important, because I said a much smaller size probably would have been more acceptable. You asked the question about, how about a deluxe size? I think in my mind, and I want to hear from the chat on this as well, but I think in my mind, deluxe and XL, although for me, they are distinct enough that I wouldn't consider a deluxe, they are largely the same audience. In terms of mostly people that are more fans, more collectors, more serious, willing to spend $500 plus. But I could be wrong. Maybe that audience is more accepting because they are slightly smaller. You can fit a few more of them in your house. The price point's a little better. You guys tell me in the chat if you think I'm wrong. Would Sonic have been more palatable as a deluxe? Let's assume everything else was ironed out, the artwork, maybe the games list is slightly different. Would that work better for you? I can't necessarily speak to deluxes. For me, probably not as much, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if the idea is just like, hey, we hate the XL price point, like, well, deluxes are a little more affordable. I want to find you brought up the counter series. There's there's a party cave. There's a couple different size counter series. I think that there's an awesome market for that form factor. I just don't think that we've hit the perfect form factor yet. Like, I think there's somewhere where and I'm just spitballing. I haven't talked to Basic Fun about this at all, but I like the idea of the counter series. I think that they're still a little bit small for my taste. I'd almost like to see, essentially like I was almost envisioning like a bar top kind of size where it's maybe closer to a deluxe, maybe not quite as deep, but still kind of that angled screen, but something that you could put up like on a bar top type deal, and still have kind of like that authentic play experience, but it could go down in like the man cave at the end of the bar, where you're sitting there drinking a beer while you're watching the game, and you can play something like that.
Like the MVSX kind of?
Yeah, something like not necessarily with the entire, riser that's like 3 feet long.
But the top part of it.
Yeah, I was always interested in that. The piece that I didn't like, and I know Bill called out the partycades. To me, the partycades are like an awkward. It's just my feeling. I feel like they're like an awkward form. Like they want to be hung on a wall, but like I don't want to stand that close to a wall.
The controls are too close to the screen, too.
Yeah,
you have to be right on top of it. It's very awkward. It's like a 3-inch or 4-inch depth of controls before you're mashing your knuckles into the bezel. It's odd.
I like the size of the screen, but it's almost like instead of having something that could mount on the wall or that just had feet on it, like even if it was like a little bit slimmer, I think like a bar top size with the partycade screen, and then move the controls down to where I'm playing in a comfortable, kind of sitting position. I think that could be a cool form factor. But I also think that something like that probably doesn't make sense in a 20% tariff environment. Because you're talking like people want to pay like $250 for that. Like that's kind of where people would be happy. And I think that's just a tough price point to hit with the tariffs, but we're getting creative.
But I feel like that, again, that starts to get closer into that idea of being, I'll say, collectible versus like this is a considered purchase for a limited space environment. That becomes slightly more like, I can fit a couple of these in my room over here on the side. Cool. It's going to look neat, has some fun artwork, nostalgic artwork, whatever. Doesn't have to be arcade authentic because itself is not arcade authentic. It's not a 5-foot tall machine that's like, oh, is that kind of the real thing? Like I've actually had people ask if this Pac-Man XL back here is the real thing. It's not, and the other ones you can tell pretty clearly are not because like this deluxe is pretty skinny. But that Pac-Man was so close.
Yep.
People have actually mistaken it for the real thing. And that's what a lot of us want because we can't either afford or they're too heavy or whatever to have the real thing. That's what gets us close to that feeling, and that's ultimately what we're looking for, which is why you get this visceral, emotional response when it's like, that's not the arcade I'm trying to recreate. That's cool for nostalgia of something else, and that's fine, but that's not the arcade I want. That, make it a shelf thing, make a wall thing, whatever, but not the big arcade thing. And I think that's the disconnect that I'm afraid that at least some folks at Basic Fun maybe either haven't internalized or maybe they're not necessarily concerned about, but that this community is basically trying to communicate.
Saw Jim's Pacer fan called out the Evercade Alpha.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jim.
That's a good call out. I think this is where. All right, so I'm going to wrap my argument here on the Sonic piece, and I'm going to make it an arcade one-up wrap in general. So these are my final takeaways. Sega is probably not the or not Sega. Sonic the Hedgehog
Yeah.
is probably not for the deep cut Gen X avid arcade collector. That's probably not the title that particular customer was looking for. I'll concede that.
Okay.
What I will not concede is there is an enormous market for Sonic. They've had movies recently released. It is a well-known household name, and I have no doubt in the mass market, maybe more like family space, that that'll be a good title. That'll do well. I'm sure we'll see that in the club stores, and I'm sure that I will have my own little stash of deluxes if anyone wants to buy those off me. I Here would be my exiting points though. The biggest criticisms that or like we want to have from Arcade 1-Up previously had been we want to see titles that we haven't seen. We want to see more than just Pac-Man in an XL. Like those were two of the biggest ones.
Fair.
Basic Fun has been in the home arcade business now for 4 whole months. And we have 3 XLs that have never been available before. Are they the titles that you personally wanted? Maybe some people, definitely not other people, right? But those were 2 big, massive complaints, right? Mm-hmm. There's never a new title, that's and right. we aren't getting any new XLs. So at least in their 4 months of arcade life, they have come out and show that they're interested in getting into that space and that they are not afraid to explore new titles. I will also call out something that they did not do. We did not get a Pac-Man variant.
Technically, you're right. Technically.
Not technically. I'm effing right. Like every year, everyone's like, okay, here's the new Miss Pac-Man is not Pac-Man, Paul. Like that's not a technicality. That's just a fact. All right. So like one of the biggest complaints against Arcade 1-Up is that every time it's a new announcement, it's a reskinned Pac-Man. Now, whether or not the community has gleefully accepted the titles that have come out, we can all agree they didn't give us a reskinned Pac-Man in their launching, sort of debut. So whether now also here's another piece, Paul. This is my final point. Okay. And Israel Gaming is right. I'm the corporate guy. I'm buying. I want to see massive sales. I love these titles. I think it'll be great. This is my final point, Paul. Obviously, Basic Fun is listening. They're in the chat. They're responding. They're doing things. They are making games and taking the feedback. Let's say, Paul, that they agreed with every single game that has ever been put in our chat right now. I'm not saying that they have, but if they have if in the time that we've been working with them, in the time that you and I have done this show and that we've really gotten engaged with the community and the brand, if they had agreed with every single title suggestion that ever came out, we would not hear about it yet. Because it takes that long to secure the licenses, to develop the games, everything else. So like to say, oh, Basic Fun's not listening, you have no data point to support that. Because if they are listening, you'll find out in a year once they've secured licenses and like build all these things out. In the short term, they can leverage the licenses that they have relationships with already, right? So they already have some relationships with Sega. That's a grab that would come much faster than one of these new titles that's never been done before, that has no real, sort of track record. So I think that we should look at what they have done. And obviously that is different than what we've seen in the past. There have been those pivots that I called out. I'm still excited about the future. I still think there's going to be more arcades to come out. And there's going to be ones that you're going to love, and there's going to be ones that you're going to hate. And the community is very small, and they don't agree on anything. If I could get the entire active community, Paul, to agree on one title, and I mean like all the people who come in the chat, all the people who are like talking on the YouTube shows, like if everybody agreed on one title, like that wouldn't be an MOQ. So and that would require everyone to agree. So like, just I think when we're talking about it, and Bill mentioned it a few times, like this idea that there's this homogenous, like, oh, the community's huge and this is what all the community wants. Like, all the community doesn't agree on anything. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 17 YouTube shows to argue about this shit.
What we do agree on is liking super chats.
We love super chats.
Now that we can officially accept them, and that makes us feel like we're a real show now. So thank you, Console Fanboy, for that. He just wants to know if they're going to be releasing other amazing Genesis titles like Vector Man and Toe Jam and Earl and
Booger Man next. There we go.
Oh man, I wouldn't mind a Desert Strike. That was an EA title. That was pretty cool. I sold a bunch of those, but no, even that I wouldn't want, because it's not an arcade title. I want arcade machines.
That's right.
Yeah. So no, obviously our chat only represents a tiny fragment of this entire audience, which we very much appreciate seeing on a weekly basis, but it's a small group. I see it as like a sample set of a larger population. So yeah, I think honestly a lot of this to me was just in the execution of it. I think we're all happy that there's more XLs. I think we're all happy that Sega is a partner now. That's a tremendous win, and I think Basic Fun should be congratulated for that. I think they deserve props for bringing 3 Supreme size titles that in fairness, we have not actually seen any of these 3. Whether or not they're executed to our liking, they are new. I'll give you that. So that's great. And again, they haven't been in this space that long, I guess, since Toy Fair last year. Technically, we saw the Toy Book interviews and all that. They've had maybe a year or so to kind of learn the market, and I agree, they're still learning, still taking that input in. These things take time. A lot of these relationships are new. They're still trying to figure that out. It's going to take time to get there. I think for me personally, the biggest issue with this was really in the execution of how the communication of it was handled, in terms of saying, like, this is the thing that, like, oh, we're teasing it to the community, and you guys are gonna love it. Just wait. And that felt like, well, maybe you don't really know us yet. If you felt like this is the thing that's really gonna get us excited, and maybe it shouldn't have been, as much fun as the teases are. Maybe honestly, it should have just been like, we're gonna release a variety of titles this year. Some of them we think you're gonna love. Some are for some of our other partners that they're gonna love. We're just going to show them all to you. Instead, it kind of felt like, no, these are for you. They're XLs, man, right? This is what you want. And it's like, yeah, but no, not really. Like, did you really listen to us yet? So again, I kind of feel like that's where some of the disconnect was. I think we'll get there. I still have high hopes for Basic Fun. I still think they're trying to do the right thing. I honestly do think they're listening and they're working. And as much criticism as we've laid out there tonight, I think at least some of it, they've been hearing over the last week or so, is going to result in better products. I'm excited about where we're going to go with Sega. I feel like, okay, let's assume this is the low point. Console titles for me are a low point. It can only be up from here. I hope, so I'm still in the same place I was maybe October of last year, where I'm like just hoping and waiting for something great. These are not those great titles for me, but I still have good hopes and expectations that we'll get there.
I think we will.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, with that.
Hey, Arcade 1-Up. Hey, the tease was fun. No regrets. You know what? Hey, own it. I love it.
I want to
No,
see somebody
no apology
with a
tour.
title that says the no regrets on it, you know, the tattoo across their chest. That's
That's
I feel like that's a level of no regret happening here. Like, yeah,
oh,
no,
that's I've got that tramp stamp.
yeah.
Absolutely, no regrets.
I love the teasing. It was fun. And again, to the credit of Basic Fun, the level of communication with the community over the past few weeks has been awesome. To me, that's a model of what it should be. It's been fun, it's been light, it's been fast and responsive. We have not had that for years. So kudos, Basic Fun and mystery person behind the Arcade One Up official account. Love that. And as much crap as we give you, that has been a win.
Right?
100%. Keep communicating. We love it. Thank you for that. So, you know, keep on doing it. But I do think that, you know, hopefully there are other lessons learned, you know, in terms of how to sort of work with this core fan base that still wants to buy your products. As much as we talk about, well, this is for some other audience, there are still 55,000 people in the Arcade One Up subreddit who have bought products in this category, oftentimes room full of them.
Yep.
You're talking 5, 6, 10 of these per person. Do you not want us to buy products? I think you probably do. We think you do. So, you know, let's kind of like get there together. We'll give you feedback. You maybe, you know, hear us every now and then, and I think we'll get to a good point.
I think you're right on there. I think obviously they're engaging. They're people. They're gonna knock it out of the park some days. They might whiff a play here and there. I'm excited about it. I think from a licensing standpoint, it's really cool to see that they're engaging and with so many different licenses right
Yeah.
now. Considering that you know, anyone who's following Arcade One Up over the past year or so knows that, you know, licenses weren't coming in; they were getting stripped away. So to see licenses coming back in,
Good point. Good point.
that's a really that's a sign of a kind of like remerging market, that the licensors are still there looking to work with someone, and the Basic Fun has proven to be that partner. So to me, that's good. That means that the possibility of a lot of these titles that we've been asking for, you know, have a good shot at coming true. And the way that they were able to scoop a lot of those up, because remember, like, titles don't come over in the acquisition. So
Yep.
yeah, like you can buy tooling, you can buy designs, you can buy files and ROMs and things like that, but you like the licenses aren't transferable. So every license we see has been Basic Fun going out and pounding the pavement, hitting the phones, and reestablishing relationships that were in like a really, really bad place, right?
For
So
sure. Yeah.
that is to see more than just Pac-Man already available year one. To me, that's incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
You know, like Atari wasn't going to be available anymore. Like that was when you saw the Golden Tea cabinet, and we're like, why is Midway on a Golden Tea cabinet? That's because like Atari was out of the picture. Atari's back in the picture, right? So like little things like that, seeing Sega in, it's good. It's a good thing. The future's bright. You know, Arcade One Up person, whoever you are, that I can't confirm or deny that I have an idea. I know exactly who the hell you are. You know, just listen. The people are asking for some specific titles. So, you know, when I propose it and I say like, hey, I still want some of these, you know, these are the people who yell at me if you say no. So just keep that in mind. You know, we're trying to change the world here, right?
And we're buying more than
Absolutely.
one random one at a Costco or Walmart or wherever. We're buying rooms full of this stuff, and we're actively talking about it and getting other people interested in it. We are the people that influence other people to buy these, maybe only one or two, but we're the people that, you know, they go over to their houses, they see it, and they're like, "What's that? Oh, that's an Arcade One Up. Where do you get that?" We're the kind of people that are doing that for you. So maybe not everything is a hit, but every now and then, you know, it'd be great to have that. And honestly, I truly think even if you had announced Sonic in the exact way that it was done, but you had put a teaser out there that said, and there's more coming from Sega, start your engines or something, it would have been like, Oh, okay. Gotcha. Now we're talking the same language. There's a racer coming from Sega. Awesome. We'd be talking about it for weeks. But because there was nothing except for Sonic, when it didn't connect with us, that was really probably the issue. Sega itself is a win. I mean,
Yeah.
kudos on Sega. That's a win. I think it's just some of the communication stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, like they said, what you want them to tease and what they're allowed to tease are two very, very different things. So I
take it back to them. Don't blame the community for saying, "Hey, we're not thrilled with Sonic." That's not on us. Take it back to your licensor and say, "Hey, our fan base doesn't necessarily want Sonic. They really want these 3 things instead. Can we talk about that?" That's not the community's fault.
All right. But I'm going back to this, Paul. When was the last time you had a big announcement and it wasn't a Pac-Man reskin?
You talking about like WrestleFest?
The community loved WrestleFest. No, but I mean, you've got back-to-back announcements for cabs that haven't been reskin Pac-Man. Like, let's celebrate the small victories, Paul, because for years that's all we've got. Hey, there's a new Pac-Man. CM Historian has a whole forest of trees carved with every Pac-Man that's ever been created somewhere. That list exists.
I do have that list. I think we're up to 52 titles, and that included Ms. Pac-Man because Ms. Pac-Man was a hack of Pac-Man. So there you go.
Yeah. But it's not Pac-Man.
Well, on that note.
What a fun time. What a fun time.
Oh, man. All right. Well, yeah. I guess we'll just go back to our respective corners, a little missing a few teeth, but otherwise no worse for wear.
I think it's a good conversation, right? It's a good conversation. Obviously, the chat was involved. They got their thing out. David Deming has had 400 negative things to say. Go touch grass, brother. Like, for the love of God. So, I think we've had a good time. It's been we've had some good laughs. I think at the end of the day, to me, the part that I like is like, dude, like, we all got jobs. We all work hard all week. And for an hour plus every Thursday night, we all get together and chop it up. Like, to me, dude, that's like, I don't care, dude.
I can't beat that. Yeah.
I don't care who wins or loses the argument in these things. The fact that we can do this, we can sit around and talk about video games, like, we're already winning. Like, this is fantastic.
We are. These are true first world problems. So I've got no complaints.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for jumping in and keeping the chat live tonight. Obviously a great time. So do the likes, put like a comment or something. There's like algorithms and shit. So
we don't know anything about it, but we love it. We try to.
No. I still spend $40 a month on advertising to grow the channel, Paul. So we'll ride this wave, brother. We'll get to the top.
There's 3 people in Oklahoma being highly targeted, by that are minimal ad buy, but we'll take them every single time. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone in the chat for chatting it up tonight.
Perfect.
We'll see everybody next week.
All right. Later on, everyone. Have a great evening.